Hey everybody, we're back again with the Caves Cast podcast. I'm Jeremy,
And I'm Ryan.
and today we will be reviewing the Immortal Thor #6.
Yes, sir.
Um, it's I don't think it's anybody's surprise or like revelation that this book has been one of our favorites
Yep.
over the last 6 months,
Yeah.
probably. Well, yeah, 6 months now.
Yeah.
Um, every issue's been great, man, and it's nice because like we're both fans of Al Ewing. We're both fans of Immortal Hulk. Like we like the longer form like storytelling.
Right.
So it's cool to see him like Al Ewing not just do that again, but also like take a more from Thor's history and even like change it and you know in a way that makes sense. Like can
Right.
it retcons these things in a way that makes sense for Thor and makes sense for Loki and the characters that are in it,
Yeah.
I think. Um, So all that being said, we pick up from actually he goes back to the Eddas with this one. I think last issue was something different, but I don't, it might have been yeah, because like the first four issues there was like a little excerpt from the Eddas, and then this
Right.
last issue was like a different poem or something,
Right.
and then so we're back to the Norse Eddas, and it says Uller and all the gods' favor shall have whoever first shall took to the fire. Again, I couldn't tell you what the hell any of these mean.
Right.
It's just cool. Like it's just cool to see him keep doing it, like he did with like all the verses and Immortal Hulk
Right.
and
Just
all
keeping
that.
it consistent.
Yeah. So it opens up with just like a page, like somebody's reading a comic, and it's the same line we just read. You know,
Right.
ruler and all the gods' favor shall have whoever first shall look to the fire. And then it's if the use of like certain lettering in this book makes it pretty easy to determine who's talking.
Right.
So this first dialogue bubble being Dario Agger, and we know from the end of the last, the last arc that Amora and Scourge are helping him
Right.
with like twisting Thor's legend. But we also jump straight to uh, Loki and Thor, who are Loki's like telling him a story, but he's also warning him about the dangers of him being the Skald and how he can shape these stories and how like the stories themselves can change and they not really be aware of it.
Right.
Like it's a really cool idea that like
Almost like if you
because
retell your past, you can almost change your past in a way you can manipulate it.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like and there's a huge emphasis on like the ability to change history or the ability to like weave a tale in a way that is ever changing or and that's kind of been Loki's thing for quite a while. At
Yeah.
least since Ewing's had him, he's been able to kind of weave himself in and out of the narrative or change it however he sees or however they see fit.
Right.
It's cool to see that consistency, not just, you know, for Loki, but also like what he represents as the Skald and then what Agar is doing and what Utgard Loki will be doing. There's just I mean it's we're like there's just a lot going on and it's at any given time I feel, but it's all really interesting and it's all cool to see like how it all connects together,
Right.
starting to connect together. So yeah, they just keep on talking about like the dangers of the story and what it means, and Thor's kind of just like, I believe you, you're my enemy, I trusted you to be so, so let's tell the story,
Right.
and then so we go back to like a distant, you know, far gone age. Thor and Loki are young, they're but they're also like themselves right now. It's like they're seeing themselves through the eyes of their in this story.
Yeah.
Um, and it opens it up with them finding this black bridge, and Thor is adamant he's just ready to go because back in the day he didn't have humility. He was just arrogant and headstrong. And it is cool to see him acknowledge like ask Loki, like, was I really so cruel? Like, was I that like unkind to you?
Right. The development he's taken over the years and the character,
Yeah.
his
And,
character basically changing and becoming.
mhm,
I love that. That's the stuff I love. Like, Hulk was,
right.
I mean, Thor was just this like meathead, pompous. And I just loved that Ewing took a second to say, like, hey, I'm not that character anymore. I have a lot more responsibilities. Learned, I've learned
Right.
humility. I think that's important for things like Thor because I hate to bring it up, but a lot of people's only they only know Thor through like the MCU, which just had him develop and then put him back to being a meathead again. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like I love that Ewing was like, no, I'm gonna. This is a way developed Thor. This is Thor at like
Yeah.
probably the most developed he's ever been.
Right. And it's well, like the other thing I think about too is like even like when Kate's run was like first starting out, pretty much all of Thor's problems, the way he solved them was by like breaking them, you
Right,
know, like use a hammer to smash it. Like, and then at one point he literally smashed the hammer to destroy the hammer. Like,
right.
like it got to a point where like he's becoming like the long, like blonde haired Hulk. I don't
Yeah,
know, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, and I want more for the character, and I think that he deserves more. So,
yeah.
and
Kate's
Ewing
really
clearly
focused on
thinks
that
so
with even
too.
the Banner of War stuff. It was just like, how
Right.
can I make these two action figures just
Beat him up. Right.
yeah,
Yeah. So like yeah, but it is nice to see Ewing like take the time to, I mean, even to write it on the page, like that he's sorry. He regrets doing it to Loki and treating him that way.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and then they come across these gates. So like this is interesting because none of this stuff, like the Black Bridge, these ominous gates, none of that was like they weren't like invited in to this like separate realm or whatever. But like Loki clearly stated, the story can change.
right,
So I mean I guess it's probably best to tip it off before we get going. So the rest of this issue is essentially just a reference to Thor 272, which in that issue is where it's like a young Thor and a young Loki. End up they travel through the woods like in Asgard, and they end up finding their way to Utgard,
right,
and they find a giant. Um, Similar to how this issue will go, the first part of this or this next part of the issue will go, um, is they find the giant. They walk inside his glove. They think it's a cave, but then they get picked up, and it's as the story unfolds, they end up going through three trials from the Utgard Loki, and there's like a twist to each one of them, and so eventually, they find their way out. At the end, they overcome the trial. The final, whatever it may be. It's been a while since I've read it, but
yeah,
a couple of months now. But you know, regardless, like this is a new, like the Scald's take on it and how the story is changing and what relevance it has to, it's like, I guess, present day Thor.
right.
Um, so Thor is like just ready to go, man. He just the gate swings open on its own, and he's like, "All right, we're going." Like he's like, "I'm not wasting any time." And like I just said, they end up finding themselves inside of a cave. Only it's not a cave; it is the glove of a giant. And the giant's like they ask for the giant's name, and the giant just responds like, I haven't needed a name until this one, or like just until this moment. So like, but you can call me Scrymir.
Yeah,
I make my name Scrymir, like copy the copycat. It and for anybody paying attention, like in the first issue, Skrymir was the frost giant that challenged Thor,
Right.
who invoked the name Utgard Loki, but in the original 272 story, this giant is also Utgard Loki.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like a mind bend because it's like this circle that just
Right.
you keep like finding yourself in. So like I wonder if Ewing is making it so that it's always been Utgard Loki, you know?
Right.
Like this character, obviously Utgard Loki. We don't know that he's the Utgard Loki in 272 until he reveals himself to be Utgard Loki.
Right.
But then you have the frost giant Skrymir, and now you have in this updated story, this is Skrymir, and then you have the Utgard Loki from this run, who I think could potentially have been all of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Kind of like him keeping an eye on Thor throughout the ages, kind of
Yeah.
thing, or like testing him from then, like we'll just say like continuity wise, like testing him in 272,
Right.
and then he tests him again at the beginning of this run to kind of like kind of like gauge him to see how things have gone.
Right.
And this is kind of going to be his attempt at making a play, at
Got
least in this issue, because we know based off of the preview pages for next issue
yes.
that he is going to be showing up.
Yeah.
Um, so like the trial here was, they're hungry, and uh, the giant says, "Hey, you can join me for food, but I'm gonna take a nap. All you have to do is loosen the knot. It's the easiest thing you can do." And Thor says, "Okay, let's do it." And they're struggling and they cannot open it. And so Thor gets like he's just getting pissed, man. Like he he thinks it's trickery. He thinks it's just like he doesn't see why he should have such a hard time opening this bag,
Right.
but um he does. And this is the same back in 272. So, everything is almost like beat for beat,
Right.
except for now, except for right here. And like Thor is getting ready to like chop this giant a new one, but like because they're revisiting this tale, all Father Thor like realizes that this isn't right. Like, are you sure
Right.
this is what I did? And he said, no, like I'm better than this. And so like, and it's a cool moment to see how like how right Loki was, but also how powerful Thor was. That he
Right.
is the one that's able to change the story. So
Right.
like he jumps to the forehead of the giant, and he's getting ready to swing down, and he's like, not this, not this. And yeah, and he changes the story here.
Yeah.
And
I think that's pretty
instead,
cool. I think it's pretty cool that it shows like the panic of like Thor being like, ah, like this is now not in my control. This is no longer, you know,
yeah,
it goes back to what Loki was training him for, basically.
right,
It's like
right,
now you're out, you're helpless, but think. Don't just brawl out, think.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So and again, he's really leaning hard into these like the fluidity of like storytelling
Right.
and like these tales being woven and how these things are changing and how pretty much everything that Thor thinks he knows is almost wrong. Like
Right.
he has no idea. He's like on such a path of discovery and like all these tests that he has to face. And yeah, I mean it just ends basically with the the giant waking up and saying, "Hey, like what was that? Like was it a leaf fall on me?"
Right.
And Thor's like, "No, it was nothing." And he's like, "All right, well then let's go to the Utgard Hall." So like, and if I remember correctly, like in the original story, Thor does give him like a solid whack, but it does, I mean, obviously it doesn't do much.
Right.
And he has the hammer in that story, but he has Yarnborn in this.
Okay.
So like, I mean, regardless, it's still with present day Thor history and when he had Yarnborn versus when he had Mjolnir,
Right.
timeline wise, it would fit,
Yeah.
um, like, but it's interesting to see how the story's going to change because they get like taken to Utgard Hall after this because the
Right.
Giants like, let's go, like
Right.
you're coming with me because you just cut me.
Right. Because we didn't see too much of Gaia or Agar in this
No,
at all, really, huh?
and well, I mean, we flip to that last page,
Right. The last page.
and it's Amora is still enchanting Agar, and he's reading right there on the page,
Right.
Thor 272. So they're already making their moves, and we know that this is going to eventually lead into, the ROXXON Thor.
Right.
And I mean, it'll be interesting to see like what Ewing has planned like for this side of things because it's really cool to see Thor have to deal with like his entire history and his life and his legacy being changed like basically on a whim by two
Yeah.
separate forces.
And having to trust himself to say, like, yes,
Yeah,
this is not what happened.
yeah,
I don't know. I
it's so
love it.
funny. Good.
I love it just because I think it's very I love the meta stuff. And not even that, I think this is
Mhm.
perfect like meta for like the fantasy of Thor. Like,
Yeah,
and it's so I think it's really cool too how kind of like Marvel is letting Ewing Grant Morrison this up a little bit.
yeah, and
Like,
like, and it's very like in like on brand for like Norse mythology and Norse storytelling
yeah,
because like one of the big themes in Norse stuff is like fate and being able to like the grand design of things, attack like all these like things that are just like you're destined to do these things are like Ragnarok.
right,
Thor's destined to fight the Midgard serpent and they're destined to kill each other, like all of these things that are supposed to happen. And it's a cycle of death and rebirth. And even in Marvel, like it's the
right,
same thing. Like all of these things are preordained and foretold, and you'll die, but you'll be reborn. So it's
right,
cool to see like them take a literal like narrative twist and change the story and say like yes, but here's our chance to change it. Here's our chance to like get out of this cycle, get out of this loop that they've been stuck in.
right.
So
I
and it's
think it's
cool to see him do it with like traditional like old classic stories, but with a
right.
lot of brand new ideas.
So what do you think is going to happen for this event coming up? What do you have in mind, do you think?
My my guess is because 7 is the second part of this,
Right.
and then 8 will be he's supposed to see like the cover has him like tied up by Gaia, but it talks about how like the women that Thor loved. So I'm guessing one of them would be Gaia, one of them might be Sif, and one
Yeah,
of them
that's
might be Jane. I don't know in what context that's going to be,
right.
but I mean, I would even say maybe a shot in the dark is we could see Lorelai come back, and that's Amora's sister,
Right.
and she kind of her like she was like trying to seduce Thor for like the first half of Simonson's run. So we
Yep.
could see her make a comeback and try and do something like that to kind of get her back in good graces, either with Amora or Loki. Like I don't know. Like she could
Right.
have her own plan. Who knows? But after that, I mean, 9 is the start of like the ROXXON Thor stuff because in April that's when that starts, and that's when the
Is it just
ROXXON
going to
Thor
be the
starts.
Thor books that are pretty much just doing this, or are they
Yeah, I
tie
don't
into other books too? Or
I don't think I think it's just going to be the 2 books. I mean, I would
okay.
hope. I could see them make. I don't even know that they'll do like alpha and omega or anything like that because I mean it's possible that Ewing's just gonna have like a one or two one shots, and this will be like that first like kind of like big moment, like the arc
Right.
of the series, while we're still like doing the Elder God stuff and still like unraveling that in the background
Right.
because that's a big story, and I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of big reveals with that.
Yeah.
Like like Ewing used those who sit above in shadows in Agent of Asgard. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has plans for them.
Right.
Like we still haven't seen the other elder gods. Like we still haven't seen Set. We still haven't like Chthon is still not like around. Like he's around, but he's not around.
Right.
Um, so like there's just a lot that he has like to get through, I guess, you know.
Yeah. It's looking like this is going to be like a 50 issue Immortal Hulk type.
Yeah, I mean, he said like he already has like 40 plus issues plotted out. So
God,
he's like
good
cooking,
Lord,
man.
dude. This guy is he's got to be like Hickman and just have like post-it notes connecting to everything on his
Yeah, I mean,
comic wall.
probably. Yeah, or in it, yeah, it's just like that in his brain.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
insane.
the dude's like an encyclopedic, like he has like an encyclopedic knowledge of Marvel. So
Yeah.
like I mean, he pulls stuff from the golden age, like that. Okay,
How
sure.
many people reading Thor knew that this is from Thor 272 if it didn't tell them that in the editorial?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like if he didn't spoil like almost spoil it in his newsletter and also put it like literally the cover in the actual book,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, it's cool, man. I This book continues to be great. I mean, Alex Ross covers are hella sick. Like every
Yeah.
time they're just so
Every
good.
time. Yeah. I
And
love it
it's
too because you're seeing like how scary you don't really see Utgard Loki much, but you see kind of like his face in the backgrounds of stuff, or
yes.
you kind of just see his presence, and that
Yeah.
alone is kind of like jarring itself.
And I
I think that's so cool. I think that's so cool that he's just like Utgard Loki has just been this thing that we've seen in passing. It's just been this thing that we don't see it talk really. We don't see it. We just kind of see it there, and we know that it's influencing,
yeah, I mean
just changing
I
everything.
think the only time he said anything was at the end of issue 1.
Yeah, where he says it's the
You know?
Utgard Loki, whatever. He just called. He
Yeah,
just
like yeah, and yeah, it's like something along the lines of like if Loki can give him trouble, like the Utgard Loki will utterly destroy him or something.
right,
But
right,
like it's and he's Ewing is using him in the right capacity too, I think. Like he's not really like overplaying his hand with him
right,
because we get like the tease and it's played out perfectly, man. Like you get the tease of him at the end of issue 1. We focus on every and Gaia, and then we focus on all of Toronto's for the next 4 issues.
right,
And then he's like, "Hey, man, it's my sister's fault. Your mom, she let me in, and like basically spilled the beans about what's going on."
right,
I don't think he knows that Utgard Loki is around. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'd have to reread it, but like, I don't think that he's even aware
No,
of Utgard Loki being like doing things in the background. I mean, obviously, the biggest question still is why is Gaia doing this?
right.
And I mean, the other thing I think about too is since he's Gaia's son, and we've talked a little bit about this already. Like he's related to all the pantheons,
Yep,
so like I would like to see that explored, you know.
yep.
And I'm sure Ewing probably has some kind of plans for that because it would be such a missed opportunity, I think, to like not dive into that stuff because like and just because I just finished the Celestial Saga, like part of that storyline is like all of the pantheons coming together to protect Earth,
Right,
you know. But like and then because you have like the Indian like gods, you've got the Greeks, you've got the Norse, you've got the Mesoamerican, like you've got all of these pantheons that like and it's cool, man. It's cool to see and like and Thor goes to all of them and like battles them and all these things. Like it's cool. So it
yeah,
would be cool to see more of that stuff, I think.
yeah.
Because I mean, you know,
I wonder if we're gonna see Toranos again because he didn't really
yeah, I mean,
die. He
right, he's
just
not dead, so
kind of like forfeited and kind of left.
yeah,
So, but I think that's cool too in the dichotomy that Ewing is handling Toranos and Loki. Like he handled Toranos as this boastful, big, like, oh,
mm,
I'm this big macho and I gotta take you down with power and blah blah blah. And while Loki's just this silent in the background, manipulating, pulling strings, changing strings.
yeah,
I think that's
which
really
is
cool. to show the
which
dichotomy
oh,
and
yeah.
the difference between those two, and then compare that to current Loki, who's trying to teach Thor to not be like Tyrannos.
Right. That's exactly where I was gonna go with that. Is you have him like the parallels between each set of them, between
Yeah,
between because there's like between each set of brothers, because you even have Utgard Loki and Tyrannos almost in essence acting like the old versions of Thor and
exactly.
Loki, like you said. Like it's and they're not only trying to learn from their past, Thor and Loki, but they're also trying to like prevent themselves from like basically turning into these two.
Yes.
So and again that really plays into this to the cycle of everything, like death and rebirth, because I'm sure for if it's easy for the gods to trip and to fall back into old ways, it just shows how easy it is for humanity to do the same thing.
Exactly.
So
I, yeah, I love it. I'm excited to see what the ROXXON War is, just because I'm pretty much like in the dark. Like I don't know. Like this meta narrative thing kind of like just has me on a ride, and
mm,
I'm just strapped in. I don't know how this is gonna work. I don't know,
yeah.
but I'm just in for the ride. I think it's fun. It's not hard to follow. Ewing could have made this really hard to follow,
Oh yeah.
and I'm loving that he's not giving us the Cy Spurrier treatment, where like
Yeah.
I'm glad he didn't use this like journey into the past basically to be like build it up to be this what's going on around us, who is this, and what's going on
Right.
here, and what made this
It's
happen here. And
the way I look at it is it's almost like a unique use of time travel. Like he's not necessarily going back and changing the past in that way, but he's using like literally like they say in the book deep magics, like he's using in universe tools to change history and to change the way like the legacy of this character in a way that will benefit future storytelling.
right.
So it's cool. I like stuff like that, and Ewing is like the maestro
Yeah.
of all that.
Yeah.
So
Give
it's way
him pretty
cool.
much anything, dude. And I pretty much will buy anything with his name on it, because I know he's gonna respect the past while giving us a new angle to look at the past with.
Yeah,
Like that's what he does
yeah,
best. That he does that best. And I'm trying to think, it's because in Hulk, it was more like it did go to like Hulk's past and beginnings, but it was more like this is the force Hulk is in the Marvel universe. Like this is the force. This is why
right.
he's so unrelenting. And it seems like he's going with this now as this is why Thor's history matters and why Thor matters. Everything with Thor matters.
Yeah, and like that was something he said like when the series first got announced and he like told everybody about it.
Yeah.
Um, he said like he wanted to use the Immortal moniker again, so that way people could expect that level of storytelling and that like quality of storytelling.
Right.
Uh, but like then before people got on the impression that it was going to be like a really like horror focused Thor series, which hey, maybe an arc or two could be
Yeah.
cool, you know. Um, but he he wanted it to be like the opposite. Like he wanted it to be this like hopeful, like big, like grandiose fantasy story, like befitting of a god. So like
Right.
he I would expect we're probably gonna get some big profound like thing for what Thor's purpose or what Thor's like like what he is to the universe, because he is like he is a unique piece, because he like I said he's related to all of the gods. He's a
Right.
direct relation to the elder gods. Like he has a direct relation to humanity, who for Marvel is pretty much the center of everything.
Exactly.
Like and so like there's a lot to it there, and there's a lot to unpack. So and I think Ewing's the guy to do it. So
Yeah. No problem. I'm just hoping we do get Kokolo back eventually.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
hoping
I
after
mean,
this thing with Greg Land, we get Kokolo back, because Kokolo's art, man,
mhm,
just superb stuff.
spectacular every time, man. I
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the ROXXON thing. I'm just gonna have to get over Greg Land's art and just kind of take one for the team.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
I'm
to.
obviously like, I know I talk a lot of smack and like I won't read it if the art is bad, but I'm like, how am I gonna miss this? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. I'm not gonna miss
So
it either, as much as I don't like Greg Land's work, but it's just kind of
right.
weird how much Marvel has been pushing Greg Land on everything
I
lately.
I have this like stupid like theory, and the reason why they put Greg Land on the ROXXON Thor is because it's just this like shiny off-brand like fake Thor,
Yeah,
and that's why they put on. They said your art is perfect for this. Just
yeah.
do that.
Because
So
I
like,
mean, even
like
that
it's
whole Avengers Beyond and all that stuff was just Greg.
like, you know what I mean. Like it he like radiates that like, like, hey, like I'm not the real thing. Like I'm the
Yeah,
poser kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, and
he was
that's
like an
just me kind of.
artificial version of what
Yes,
you're used
yes.
to.
Like and that's just me being like a shit about it. But like,
I mean, it's Greg Land.
either
I mean,
way,
Marvel kind of sucks for
if
pushing Greg Land on us the way that they are. We know what we're gonna get with Greg
yeah, I mean
Land,
that's true. That's true.
but yeah,
But yeah, man, if anybody out there's not reading this book, if you're like afraid to jump in on this book, just don't be.
yeah,
The first trade's going to be coming out here pretty quick, so I get on it, man. Like it's easily, I mean, in my opinion, I'm biased, but it's Marvel's best book, and I
yeah.
think you've got Al Ewing, who again he's probably one of, if not Marvel's best writer right now. I think, and that's just my opinion.
I would
And
say
you
he's
have
probably
Hickman.
their best because he's the one shaping in every corner of Marvel right now.
Yeah, like he's like yeah, exactly. So like he's doing a lot, man. So it's cool to see like him actually get to flex and like flex a little bit and make all these big plays.
Yeah,
And then you have Martin Kokolo, who's just like just destroying every single issue.
yeah. I have
It's just
not
great.
I have
It's
not
like better
seen
and better.
one bad
No,
panel of his.
and it's all just excellent. So they got a kick-ass team on the book, man. It's easy to read. It's fun to read. It's got
It
a lot of
goes into
action.
Thor's history also without confusing you. It doesn't make you feel
Yeah,
stupid not knowing something happened in
yeah,
Thor's past.
right, exactly. And I think everybody should be reading this book. Like whether or not you are a fan of Thor, like just if you like good comics, this is a good one.
Yep, I agree, man.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.
Peace out.